Hi everyone, how are you? Now it's time for lecture 7, week 26. This lecture we're going to cover grammar and writing. This time we have to focus and concentrate on the writing because we're going to write a new type, okay? First of all, in the grammar, we're going to cover the past progressive. You will know how to form and use it correctly. And at the end, in the writing, you will be able to compose or to write a short narrative paragraph. What the narrative paragraph is, you will know at the end of this lecture. So your resources for this lecture is the worksheet 4. You will have a worksheet 4, grammar part and writing. Let's start first with some examples. I badminton at this time yesterday. I was playing badminton at this time yesterday. If you notice that in this sentence, the action is happening yesterday, or was happening, yesterday, but at certain time, at this time. Okay? And it didn't happen and finish directly. It took an interval of time. There is a period of time that had that the action needed to be completed. Let's take another example. She at 9 a.m. yesterday. What was she doing at 9 a.m. yesterday? Look at the picture. She was cycling. She was cycling. Okay, so she needed time. The action didn't happen and finish at a certain period. No, it needed time to happen. Third example. They table tennis at 6:30 last night. They were playing. So they started playing at 6:30, but the action didn't finish at 6:30. No, it continued for an interval of time, for a period of time. So they were playing tennis at 6:30. If you notice, all of these actions in these examples, they didn't start and finish at the same time. No, they continued, they needed time, they needed a period. So we cannot use the simple past tense for them. We have to use the past progressive, or what we call it past continuous. So when do we use the past progressive? We use the past progressive first to say that somebody was in the middle of doing something. Somebody was in the middle of doing something. He was playing computer games during the break. So you see, during the break, the whole break, the interval of time, this period, he was playing computer games. The second reason to use past progressive is when two things were happening at the same time in the past, two actions. Okay, were happening at the same time in the past. He was playing computer games while she was watching TV. So these two actions were happening at the same time in the past and during a period of time. So we have to use the past progressive. And the third reason to use the past progressive for actions that were happening and got interrupted by other actions. So, example now, I am recording the video for you. I am recording the session. And let's imagine that someone interrupts me, so I have to stop it. So, the action that I was doing, recording the video, I have to put it in the past progressive. Okay? And the action that interrupts me should take the simple past tense. Example, he was watching TV when Tom arrived. So watching TV was the action that was happening at during a period of time in the past, and Tom arrived, interrupted him from watching TV. Tom stopped him from watching TV. That's what we mean by interrupted. Interrupted means stopped you from doing something. Okay, so the action that interrupted the subject, or the other action, it used the simple past tense, but the action that was happening during the time takes the past progressive. So these are only the three reasons that make us use the past progressive. First of all, to say that someone was doing something in the past during an interval of time, or two actions that were happening at the same time in the past, or an action that was happening and a second action interrupted or stopped it. Okay, what are some of the time expressions that help us express that the action happened in the past progressive? I can specify the time, for example, yesterday at night, last week on Sunday, the previous hour, 3 years ago in May, when, as, while. So you have plenty of time expressions that help us figure out the past progressive. Now, how should I form the past progressive? How should I write the verb in the past progressive? In the affirmative, the positive form. We form the past progressive tense with the helping verb was or were. So I have to use a helper, which is was or were. Since I'm talking about the past, so I have to use the verb to be in the past. Was or were. Was for the singular subjects and the subject pronoun I, and were for the plural subjects. Then, this is not enough. This is a helper. It's not the main verb. The main verb must take ing. How? Let me show you. Example, the verb go. If I want to use it in the past progressive, I say I was going, he was going with ing, it was going. If I use the plural subject, we, you, they, we have to say you were going, they were going. So you see, you add ing to the verb and you have to use was or were based on the subject. The singular subjects, he, she, it, and the subject pronoun I take was, while the plural subjects, we, you, they take were. Okay? Now there are certain rules that I have to know before adding the ing to the verb. Okay? Before adding the ing. So, first of all, most of the verbs, they should take ing. Most of the verbs must take ing. Okay? So, like, if it ends with any consonant letter. If, like, break, breaking, shout, shouting. Here I must add ing directly. But if the verb ends in e, I cannot keep the e. No, I have to remove the e. I have to cross out the e, and then I add ing, like prepare, preparing. You have to remove the e, then you have to add ing. Ride, riding. You remove the e, then you add ing. For the verbs that end with ie, we have some verbs that end with ie. What should we do? We cross out the ie. We put y, then we add ing, like lie, lying, untie, untying. So you see, you have to remove the ie, then you have to add y, then ing. For the verbs whose last syllable is written consonant, vowel, consonant, when I have at the end of the word a syllable with short vowel sound and it's made of consonant, vowel, consonant, and it's stressed. If I stress on it, then I have to double the final consonant and add ing, like run, running, forget, forgetting. So I'm stressing on the T and on the N. I have to double them, then I add ing. Please, you have to know these rules. There is one more point we have to know it, which is the stative verbs. The stative verbs, or a stative verb, is a verb used primarily to describe a state of being. State of being, your state, okay? Or if we're talking about appearance, if you remember before we said stative verbs, or the verbs that express what you're thinking or your feelings, okay? So we must not use the past progressive with them. Example, they were, or the situation, I thought. You see, here is thinking. We should not use the past progressive. It's how something feels or appears. These verbs don't show physical action. There is no physical action, like I climbed or processes, it chased. No. Okay? The verbs that show physical actions, they can directly be formed in the past progressive. But other verbs that talk about states, they are not formed in the past progressive. Stative verbs can describe a mental or emotional state of being also. I doubt, as well as physical state, they were smart. Mostly, these verbs are not formed in the continuous tenses. They are not formed in the past progressive. But we have some exceptions. If you are using the stative verb instead of a physical verb, yes, you can use it in the past progressive. Like, for example, I was having a pizza. It means I was eating a pizza. It doesn't mean I was having. No, I was eating. So here, eating is a physical verb. Instead of saying eating, you can say having. Okay? Now, how should I form the negative of the past progressive? Negative. And again, I repeat, when we say negative, we mean not. Here in the past progressive, it's very, very easy. Simply, since you have the helping verb, the helper in the sentence before the main verb, so just insert not between the was and or were and the verb with ing. Just insert it, put it. Not is not likes to sit between the helper and the main verb, so it sits in the middle. We mean you will say was not or were not, then you put the verb with ing. Example, let's take the same example with the verb go. I was not going. I wasn't going. If you want, you can use was not or wasn't. Okay, so you see, just you add not between was and the verb. He, she, it, they are singular, so they took was. We say he was not going. She wasn't going. It wasn't going. Okay? If we have the plural subject, we, you, they, we weren't going. You were not going. They were not going. So simply just put the not between the was, were, and the verb. Okay? Now interrogative, the question. I want to form the question, the interrogative of the past progressive, and it's also very, very easy. We form yes-no questions by using the helping verb was or were with the plus subject plus present participle. We mean the verb with ing. Simply, you form the yes-no question by starting with was or were, then the subject, then the verb with ing, and the rest of the sentence. Example, the verb watch. Was I watching TV, for example? Was he watching TV? Was she watching TV? Was it watching TV? Were we watching the birds flying in the sky? Were you watching the tsunami yesterday at night? Were they watching a new movie at the cinema? Okay, so you see, you just start with was or were, then subject, then the verb, and the rest of the sentence. Okay, this is for yes no questions. But if I want to form the question or the interrogative form of the past progressive with WH word, so simply, you start with the WH word, then was or were, then the subject, then the verb, and the rest of the sentence. Example, where was I going? When was he going? When was she going? When was it going? Why were we going? Why you were going? Why were they going? So you see, you start with the WH word, then you put was or were, then you put the verb with ing. Okay? So simply that's how we form the past progressive in the affirmative, negative, and interrogative forms. Now, let's have an exercise, a practice. Complete the sentences with the past continuous form. Past continuous form. Let's see. Remember, you have to use was, were, then verb with ing. I run when you saw me because I was late. So the verb run. First of all, I have I. I takes what? I takes was. I was. Then now I have to put the verb with ing. Run. Run. Run is made of consonant, vowel, consonant with short vowel sound, and I'm stressing on the last consonant. So what must I do? I must double the last consonant, then add ing. 2. They wait for a bus when the car crashed. They is plural, so we have to put were. They were. They were. Now I have to put the verb with ing. They were waiting. Are there any necessary changes here? No, the verb ends with the consonant letter, though I just directly add ing. Gabby and Laura dance at 8 p.m. Gabby and Laura, plural subject, more than one. So they should take was or were. They should take were. So Gabby and Laura were. Dance, I have to put it with ing, and notice that dance ends with e, so what must I do? I must remove the e and add ing. We're dancing. Okay. Tomek not eat a sandwich when Ben fell into the river. So Tomek is singular. We say was. Was. And pay attention, I have here not eat. So I have to put it in the negative. So we say was not or wasn't. So Tomek wasn't. Now I have to put the verb with ing. Eat, eating. It ends with the consonant letter T. Then I just add ing. Tomek wasn't eating a sandwich when Ben fell into the river. Okay? What? Now I have to make it a question. What Carol and Jack do when Pedro phoned? So Carol and Jack is the subject. It's a plural. So what should it take? Was or were? It should take were. So what were Carol and Jack do? No, doing is in the past progressive, so I have to add ing. Number 6, it's also another question. Sally, take a photo when I phoned. So Sally, here I don't have WH word, so I have to start directly with was or were. Sally is singular, so it must take was. Was Sally. Take, I have to put it with ing. Taking. So what must I do here? I have to remove the E, then add ing. Was Sally taking a photo when I phoned? Number 7. Pedro and Tomek not laugh when Ben fell in the river. Okay. Pedro and Tomek, plural, were. Were, and I have not, it means the negative, so I have to say were not. The verb with ing, were not laughing. Here it ends with an H, so I directly add ing. Okay? So that's it. Now, so we have finished from the grammar part. We have to move to the writing part. And in the writing part, this time we're going to cover narrative writing. Narrative. What do we mean by narrative? A narrative is a story that is interesting for the reader. So when we say narrative, we mean story. And the story should be interesting. So when I say write a narrative paragraph, you have to write a short story. This type of writing makes the reader feel as if he or she were part of the story, as if it was being told directly to him or her. Okay? So, when you are writing a narrative or a story, the reader should feel as if he or she were a part of the story. Now we have to start with elements of the narrative writing. What must the narrative writing include? Okay, first of all, since it's a story, so it must include characters. Characters, we mean the people, animals, or inanimate objects who are affected by the actions of the plot or who are the cause of the certain events. We mean the characters. The characters are who or what the story is happening with. Okay? Characters, they could be real or imaginative, should be brought to life through the narrative. I mean, the reader should imagine the characters in front of him or her. If a character is not described well, the story will not be believable. So you have to describe the characters well. The second element is the setting. We all know that any story should have time and place. Where and when the narrative takes place. Where for the place and when for the time. The setting allows the readers to visualize the scenes and the characters in those scenes. Although the setting may be clear for the author, he or she must create a picture for the reader. So you have to try your best in order to let the reader imagine the story in front of him or her. The third element is the plot, and the plot is very important because it's the sequence of events, the events that happened in the story. The who, what, where, when, why, and how outline that gives the narrative direction. Okay? So the plot is the events. What is the story about? Simply you ask yourself, what is the story about? So you have to write them. Now the steps to write a narrative paragraph. Since it's a paragraph, so it should have topic sentence, supporting sentences, and concluding sentence. The topic sentence, your narrative paragraph should begin with the topic sentence. It names the topic and shares a specific thought or feeling about it. Example, sample topic sentence. My first seashell hunt had a surprise ending. So the topic here, first seashell hunt, this is the main topic. This is the story that I have to talk about it. And the special thought that the topic sentence included is that it had a surprise ending. So this is a topic sentence. Before you start telling what happened with you or with others, you have to start with a topic sentence that talks about the topic and it gives a specific thought or feeling. So here I know from the topic sentence that I will talk about the story of hunting seashells. Supporting sentences. The supporting sentences are the middle part of a paragraph. They tell what happened in your story in time order. Supporting sentences may also include details about the setting as well as conversations between characters. And notice something, that in the narrative paragraph you have to use the past tenses, the simple past tense or the past progressive together. Okay, so in the narrative paragraphs or while telling the events, you have to put them in the simple past tense. If you notice that, you have to tell what happened in your story. What happened, we mean in the past. Okay, so in the middle, in the supporting sentences, you have to tell the events. And at the end, you have finished your paragraph, so you have to close it with a concluding sentence. In the concluding sentence, you restate the topic in different words or add different feelings or expectations. Sample concluding sentence: it made me happy to spend time with my dad. Okay? Let's have now the paragraph. My seashell surprise. I started with a title for sure. I should not forget the title. Now I have to start with the topic sentence. My first seashell hunt had a surprise ending. Okay? I had a surprise ending. Early one morning, so I started telling the events with the setting time. Early one morning, my dad and I walked to the beach with a red bucket. If you notice, in the first detail, I mentioned the setting, time and the place. Time, early one morning, and the place, the beach. Now I have to start telling the events, what happened with us. The sand was soft and cool. Here I'm describing what the background, okay? I'm describing the surrounding in order to let the reader imagine the story. We collected orange, white, and brown shells of all different shapes and sizes. If you notice, we collected. The sand was, so I'm using the simple past tense. Okay, this is the first event. When our bucket was almost filled, I spotted something black and shiny pointing out of the sand. I reached down and grabbed the object right before a wave crashed against my legs. So I'm still telling the events, what happened with us. The object felt sharp and curvy. Finally, I opened my hand. What is this? I asked my dad. He said, it's your lucky day. That's a shark's tooth. To end, it made me happy to spend time with my dad. So you see, to end means that I finished my story and I have to end it with the concluding sentence. Here I expressed my feelings. It's okay, I can express my feelings that I had a great time with my dad. So you notice that I started with the topic sentence, then I mentioned the events starting from the setting with the characters to the events. Then when I finished, I closed my paragraph with a concluding sentence. Okay, now it's your time to go to the worksheet and solve the writing part, so you tell us your own story. Okay guys, thanks for listening. We have reached the end of our lecture. If you still have any questions, keep them for the Zoom session. Okay, bye bye.